Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. A miracle of miracles has happened and I need to talk about it. So, the choir director has, at long last, aside from a little bit of an exception here and there for warm-up purposes, finally, started rehearsals for a song in English. And you might be thinking, oh wow, well what's, the big deal about that? Well, I mentioned this a couple of times over the last few months, that this particular choir director has a little bit of a peculiarity, let's say, which, every time that we practice a song that was originally written in English, we always did the Spanish translation. Whenever I would pitch a particular song in English, because there are some that I wanted to do in choirs for years that I thought, oh, well, this would be a fun thing maybe, they end up being rejected on the grounds of being too difficult. Here's the thing. We have done songs so far in French, Italian, Portuguese, Zulu, Latin one time in warm-ups, and I'm sure that I'm forgetting potentially some. We have a very international repertoire, let's say. And yes, the French song that he did actually replace the second verse with a version in Gallego, particularly. Which, yeah, I didn't count Gallego and Spanish in that list, that's why, so 7 in total, I think. But yeah, English was always the exception, and it's pretty become a running gag, essentially, when it comes to, when I'm talking to the other choir members. We're like, oh yep, here's another translated song, because yeah, we actually did, yesterday in fact, one of the possibilities that we could actually do was Love is an Open Door from Frozen, or should I say La Puerta hacia el Amor, because, that's what we would have done. And yeah, it wouldn't bother me normally if it weren't for the fact that English was the only translating language. It's like, well, why is that one the most difficult one? I mean, I'm here, I was hired specifically to encourage the use of English in all areas that I could. And for some reason, that's the one that is deemed difficult, as if the school doesn't already have a major focus on learning English to begin with. It also has one, the choir itself is formed on the basis of trying to mainly encourage the other language that is massively pushed over here, which of course is Gallego, because it's the local language and it is always at risk of being lost. And I will say, this particular generation, I've heard some of them talk to them in Gallego, but most of the time it is just regular Castilian Spanish. So there is reason for that to exist. I was like, okay, I get the idea of, pushing this language. I understand that we won a prize for the best performance in only Gallego for that one competition that we did a few, was it a month ago or something? I don't know, was it end of March? So yeah, it's like, okay, fine. Well, I'm completely on board for, promoting this language that is important to them. What about the other one, What about, the reason that they hired me? How about that? And something that he said today when he finally actually, because what happened was I actually, the last class that I had today was technically would have given me a break before going into choir rehearsals, because I'm filming this after choir, not before this time. But actually, because he had a meeting, he actually cancelled the break rehearsal we normally have, because what he does is he does rehearsals during break times for the different sections. The tenor one, which happened to be today, was the one that was closed. Not that it matters to me, because I go to all of them anyway. But that one was closed, and he said to me at the end, oh hey, at 12:20, are you doing anything? I looked at my schedule. I said no, I've got a free period at that point. So I said, okay, you know, come to here. I've got a class. So I joined I joined one of the actual music classes in which we started doing California Dreaming. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, well, finally, yeah, it seems like things are going well. In fact, he has even asked me about the pronunciation of different words. Aside from the word leaves, there was no real issues. Because here's the thing, in Spanish, they don't really use the V sound. This is nothing I've noticed, by the way. In the warm-up, whenever he talks about the V sound, which normally is for a V, he always describes it as an F with sound, which it is. That is what that is. If you think about it, if you actually like do an F sound like that, and then you add you know vocal chords to that. You go from. It's the same part of your mouth. How many of you did that at home? If you did that at home, comment down below. Comment in the comment if you followed along with that on screen. Yeah, so that's the idea. So yeah, because they don't have that, because the thing is, like, the V sound, again, the sound for the letter V itself is actually just the same as B. It's actually very common to find spelling mistakes in Spanish where someone has written a word that is spelled with a V with a B, or vice versa. So so yeah, like, that's one thing that they just didn't have. Because I was like, I mean, I did the warm-up just now. I'm going to make sure that I talk about that. And then the director said, you know, thanks to me. And then afterwards, when we did the rehearsal that we normally do at the in the afternoon, he'd forgotten about that and went back to All the Leaves Are Brown. You know, the song in question is California Dreaming. I forgot to mention that. So it's one that goes like, all the leaves are brown and the sky is grey. Like that one from like 1965, I think. So yeah, that's the newest song. And it's finally seems to have made the cut. Which, you know, again, is fantastic. It's just, you know, about time, basically. So yeah, I had to talk about that quickly. I mean, yeah, again, this is another week where plenty of things have happened, especially on the YouTube side of things. But then again, most of that sort of speaks for itself. And to be perfectly honest, I want to talk about Quest the Rising Sun. Because that's something that kind of emerged organically as we were going through other different streams. This week has been very much a case of, you know, revisiting things where the creators were somewhat, you know, involved in being there. You know, we had Keseru, which where the two producers, you know, one executive and one not. Don't ask who's who. They can't agree themselves. They actually they both requested to be there, and so it was them, Bon and myself. Because yeah, they were very fond of the first review existing. I think also, so I'm just checking which way I should go, basically. There's construction work in so many places, I just need to make sure. And also a bus, forgot to mention that. Yeah, so, and then afterwards, right after that was Ballet Pops, which came out on the same day. And of course, Eli was following along in the live chat. Again, it was early in the morning first, so she doesn't normally join for that reason. Okay, seems like I'm not getting past there, so I'm going back this way. I've got to cross the roundabout again. Jeez. That's good. Let's go to the left. That'll be better. Okay. So, yeah, and then after that, well, I mean, it was supposed to be KW's latest Yu-Gi-Oh production, based on the campaign that she's currently in, I think. But I forgot. So then I decided to look at the video that Aiden got recommended and I got recommended at the same time. And I remember there's a dog on this side of the road, so I'm going to cross on the other one, just because, you know, might as well not tempt fate. There's a horse on this side, and that thing is karma. Anyway, so yeah, we did that yesterday, and yeah, throughout all of that, well, most of that, there were, you know, so there was a discussion that Bond kind of resurfaced, because he mentioned that he talked about this in an editing stream. I might have been, like, you know, hyper concentrating at the time because I didn't laser in it at, you know, in the moment. But yeah, I guess going back to Quest of the Rising Sun now, you know how before I mentioned that I had like a bunch of different backup plans, and you know, and if you know anyone I can count any pushback from one sort of idea of how to continue the story, we would you know, progress to the next one on the list, and the next one, the next one, the next one. And I think I might have said something along the lines of that I got to the end of the ones that I was able to what was I going to say, of the ones that I was I had prepared. Well, in the words of Technoblade, I was using an advanced technique called lying, because I had I think 2 more basically that I never got round to, because essentially that would take out the TTRPG angle from proceedings. However, since Bond kind of suggested this idea anyway, not aware of, you know, any discussions about continuing the story or lack thereof, as you know, we haven't really commented on that since Emily was in GCSE mode and you know, a bunch of other stuff. So while I've been halted, it turns out that Bond had some ideas of his own, which consisted of, you know what, I'm going to go into the park, why not? Which consisted of because he realized that, you know, there were these 2 major stories that KW started that never got the chance to continue because of either mismanagement or lack of passion, or KW getting overwhelmed in both cases, or burnout, I think would be more accurate in the case of Clomai. So yes, so he wanted to combine the characters of Quest of the Rising Sun with Clomai, and at first I was like, oh hey, well, you know, from a preliminary point of view, I can actually see, you know, maybe but we never actually established like what the original world that they came from was, because basically our session 0 was us being isekai, so it didn't end up being ever concretely determined, because we were kind of expecting, okay, well we'll see what kind of world we're in, given what Vin's going with. But it's like, oh wait, we're in feudal Japan. Okay, interesting. Don't recall there being many rock gnomes in that time period, but there you are. So, you know, I just realized, by the way, that I've got like 7 minutes of recording space left. I've got to delete some stuff, so I might have to pause somewhere in the middle of here. And there's more construction, so the side of the road that I was already on, I'm gonna have to cross over and cross again. Fantastic. There's so much construction going on, like specifically now. I don't know who's in charge of their scheduling there, or if there's different companies or something. As they all say Junta de Galicia, so maybe not. Yeah, okay. So yeah, the idea was I think, because I mean, from Bond's mind, obviously going from what was displayed on screen. Here's the thing about live plays that I'm not sure is usually addressed, but it's something that I've kind of observed to some degree. That's that. I mean, even new TTRPGs in general, I guess. But I've only ever been in live plays on one session 0 that wasn't streamed, or 2 sessions that weren't streamed. So yeah, I can't. But my observation is that when it comes to, because obviously in D&D there is no protagonist, because you're trying to, you know, the idea is to have everyone in the group contributes equally. The thing is, yes, everyone contributes equally, but not at the same time. That's what I found. So essentially, what I observed is that, you know, when someone has that particular, you know, arc that they're undergoing, they might end up, possibly even unintentionally, siphoning the attention away from others, just for that time. And then once it's someone else's turn, they get to have the quote-unquote spotlight for some time, and everyone obviously contributes to everyone's you know, character growth and backstory. The idea is that because they're in the party itself, that they will progress or regress depending on what story you are telling. And to be honest, like at the start, I was somewhat worried that Nathaniel might siphon that attention, even without necessarily having a particular like arc right from the beginning. If anything, what I originally kind of envisioned, like happening with Nathaniel, was that people would, like in the first time that I used the character, people would find him annoying at first, but he would, you know, eventually like express enough vulnerability. People would be like, oh, wait a second, because he is somebody who is, you know, you know how people say there's like different like things, you know, like the Lancer, the hero in quotes, and the whatever, basically. They include the heart in that one, and that's kind of what I think Nathaniel will end up being in the end. But my fear was that, yeah, because like he seemed to, like, you know, be such a bombastic character at first, like, hey, he would come off as the main character by accident. Turns out that the main character, at least the one that was perceived as such, was actually Hera, who again just so happened to be, you know, like created by the creator of the series, but that's again a coincidence, because we kind of focused in on that character's backstory and what was going on, because we actually made that the main threat. We tied the issues with the Pale Orcs to Nathaniel's wild magic, which I didn't prepare for because I didn't know was going to happen. But I literally rolled with it. So once we had that connection established, and then that obviously tied into, like, you know, the way that Barb would actually perceive her once you found out. Once the whole wild magic thing was revealed in the first place, was another major issue. Like, it's still like you start to form these connections, and even again, I forgot to mention this. You know, well, actually there was something that we're connected to Lumina too, particularly. So everyone was sort of like centering in on this being like our threat, because quite frankly we weren't sure what Vim was preparing. Everything was so shrouded in mystery, we couldn't really see. We were kind of like inserting ourselves, like becoming the threat to them rather than the reverse being the case. So as far as drama goes, it mostly came from that place, which had the knock-on effect of making Hera be perceived as the main character, or at the very least the main character of that first arc. Bomb was not the only person to have this thought process, because of things that I will talk about once I clear up some space, so bear with me. Okay, and we're back, all clear. So, what I was saying before, what happened was surrounding the departures of both Aiden and KW from the series, or at least originally. I will say both of them excited and very on board for this new suggestion, but again, I'll get to that. So when we were trying to find our third DM, basically, we actually stumbled by Era, by recommendation of Emily, and we're trying to explain things that were happening. I think at one point, well, actually two points actually, because I mean, Aiden decided to leave beforehand, and then by the time we got to, we were picking up the campaign, we had to come up with some sort of excuse as to why Doc wasn't there. And the solution that I think this was my idea actually, but this is before Breathing Moon was decanonized actually. It was that after the events of the medical license, the king wished for his help on the search party for Craig, the godly giraffe, and meanwhile we would focus on potentially like retconning the scene where Nathaniel stops Hera from leaving, and so the party would be able to pursue her. I think was the idea. We didn't want her to leave entirely because again that would leave so many other open-ended things. However, the point was, Era knew about both of these things, how I had covered for Doc's disappearance, but everyone seemed to express a lot of reservations around Hera's disappearance because there were so many things that would be left unfinished if that character left. And so then he said, because again with no context, he said, oh well, D&D campaigns are not meant to have a main character. And again, I can see why someone with no context would come to that conclusion. And if I had a nickel for every time it happened, I'd have two, which is not as weird that it happened twice, as of this week. But you could say that for quite a number of characters, I would think. They are integral even to other people's journeys and progressions. If they're not the main character themselves, removing them entirely out of nowhere is something that is very difficult, and it's something that a lot of live action TV shows particularly have had to deal with when it comes to the departure of the actors involved, and that's often very unsatisfying. Even animated shows have dealt with that to some degree. It's been theorized that the reason that Uncle Iroh particularly was so was mainly absent for Book 3 of Avatar was because his original voice actor passed away. Now it's much rarer to have that situation with voice actors because again, voice actors that can be much more easily replaced, and most often are. I think the other exception to that would be Glossaric from Star Wars: The Forces of Evil. I believe his original voice actor also passed away, and they took a while to come back, and that's why he only said Globgor for the whole of season 3. Both season 3s actually, and Wise Mentors. Anyway, that's so it's not confirmed because the reason they gave for him being silent, giving Zuko the silent treatment, it made sense in universe, and they gave both Iroh and Glossaric different voice actors eventually, so it didn't end up mattering. One show addressed the difference in voices and the other one didn't, because to be honest, handling it in that way makes a lot of sense. I guess another example would be the Oracle from The Matrix. They wanted to bring that character back, and they made some convoluted excuse as to why the character looked different, even though it was essentially just the actress again dying, passing away. So yeah, obviously those examples are very extreme, but you get what I'm saying. That clearly there was a lot more that was going to be done, and to some degree that had to be, in those cases, pushed back, but in others, delayed entirely. And my brother just sent me a message. I'm gonna address that in a Okay, back again. He wanted to know the number, the passcode for our Disney Plus. So yeah. Right. So yeah, again, out of context comes across the main character. In context, it is essentially, a focal character, but not necessarily the same thing, if that makes sense. But yeah, for somebody removed from that whole idea who wasn't there for the behind the scenes, wouldn't necessarily know that, which brings us back to Bon. So, as it turns out, the idea was to mainly focus on like one of the characters. I won't say which one. I won't give too many spoilers away in case this does end up going through. Of Klamai, and who happens to meet the Quest of the Rising Sun characters. And so essentially, because in Bon's mind, it was only Hera's story that was that really was like the remaining driving force. That would be the best way to wrap up for those characters, even if it ends up meaning that they end up supporting another in a different main character scenario. And that's of course when I was like, well, you see, because I haven't mentioned a lot of these things, and to some degree, this is something that I actually talked to Vin and KW about yesterday, actually after the stream. Even we, the people behind the scenes, don't know all the bits that we were trying to essentially piece together. Because in some ways, the people who are supposed to know that ultimately in TTRPGs are usually the game master, in this case dungeon master, and the player themselves. A lot of the time, other stuff is kept a secret, so that the GM can craft the story to suit that narrative. That's what normally happens. But that, of course, means that, even then, we still talked about other things that we had planned if they were, tying in other stories together, where I was like, oh, hey, this scene that happened between Nathaniel and Lumina, it could mean this thing for her, and might, change her mind about certain things that you expressed maybe she would want to have doubts on in the future for dramatic purposes. This could be the source of those doubts. Again, I'm being vague on purpose, but Emily knows what I'm talking about. And I'm sure there was a lot of that going on that I wasn't involved in. I'm sure that there were some other connections that the other characters talked about at different times. I think Vin mentioned that he'd been DM'd by some people about this, which is a good sign, because again, the thing that really destroyed Quest of the Rising Sun was lack of communication, so I'm glad that some communication was still going through. It's always a relief to hear that. But yeah, like even the stuff that we talked about that we obviously didn't say, because when you're doing a live play, why would you reveal all the things that you intend to do outside of that context? I will say I actually told Kirby and Vin an idea that I had for how Nathaniel would deal with the main threat if given the chance in the most Nathaniel way possible, and they were super excited about the concept, and it would have been a great thing to do at the table. I didn't actually mention one specific thing that I will probably talk to them about later. I was like, oh, I forgot to mention this detail, make it even cooler for them, hopefully. But yeah, again, that is just from my perspective. But there are, there was 5 plucky travelers for a reason. At 1.6, but it depends. One thing that Bond said was that if something went through, there would most likely be no Utopia in whichever retelling had occurred. But yeah, the thing is that as of right now, it seems like because the original idea was so focused on how essentially it seemed like okay, these characters would want how to wrap up their story. Bond didn't realize at the time how much story there was to wrap up. The reason that those of us that remained in Quest of the Rising Sun are so insistent on continuing it, apart from for our own satisfaction, is because we had so much planned. Like, I'll tell you, I had so many songs that I planned to write for specific scenarios if Nathaniel found himself in those, all culminating eventually in what was supposed to be an album that was supposed to be released alongside, the different seasons. And of course, you know, that big finale plan. Who knows what else would have happened, you know, in between the other characters with or without Breathing Moon. Like, that's why, you know, we're like, okay, well, we want to finish the story. Obviously not at the expense of anyone's mental health. That's the major thing. So essentially Bond's idea, to go back to this idea all from the beginning, was, you know, a combination of Kilmai and Crest of the Rising Sun, but in scripted form. And I will say, I haven't talked to everyone about this idea yet, but Aiden and KW, who are the ones who are, you know, obviously, but obviously, I would say they were the most affected by the drama, but they responded the heaviest to the drama. So the fact that they've both been enthusiastic and, you know, willing to contribute to different levels should this go through, shows that, again, you know, the reason that any of us were tenacious enough to keep going to begin with during season 1 was because, you know, we really care about these characters and their story and everything we were kind of forming. I still remember the words that Vin said at the beginning, which became exceptionally ironic as time went by, but still kind of, like, you know, rang true from that session 0. You know, he said that, I think I said only once before had he ever actually encountered a party that seemed, you know, as united as ours, you know, like that common goal, or like gelled so well to begin with, like, initially. And that's, of course, because by that point, I think we'd known KW for about a year, but the rest of us, you know, that was like, we had like half a decade worth of experiences, you know, under our belts, at minimum. Because I met Aiden in 2019 and BB in 2018, so yeah, or maybe in 2017 actually. Depends when that was. Yeah, I think it was 2017 actually, because everyone was, you know, saying like, oh wow, I'm so excited for season 6 of Maestro. When is that going to happen? What's going to happen in that one? So it could have been 2017. I don't know. I don't remember. So it's been a while basically. And, you know, we've been through thick and thin together. So yeah, like, it seemed like the perfect combination at first. So, like, that's why it became so ironic that it's like, oh, well, you know, this tore us apart. I was like, well, I mean, if we can't make this work, what can we make work? Turns out the answer may be what we've been doing all these years, essentially. You know, as long as everyone is still granted the same agency. KW has been through this before, even with Bond, actually, of taking a story that was that started off as a role play, and then turning it into, you know, what it became, Secrets of the Plex. So there was precedent for that. That's why Bond decided, okay, I'm gonna step up on this. Part of the reason, again, it was a combined project is because obviously Bond is swamped with a bunch of things right now, so this would have been somewhere far down the line. I am wondering though, because after we talked, it did seem like Crest of the Rising Sun would be the one that would take the most focus in terms of, you know, taking the center stage rather than Kilmai specifically. So that original idea of a combination might end up being reversed in some way. Like, we would have to talk about that, but I would also have to run that by BB and Emily, who have not been involved in this whatsoever. But this is just, you know, because again, it's Walking Wednesday, I'm talking about what's on my mind. This has been on my mind for quite some time. I know that BB in particular is probably going to watch this video, and, you know, hopefully that way will be a way to summarize why this is being considered. Because, I mean, it does remind me of Legend of Vox Machina, the animated series based on the Critical Role campaign of the same name. I would also say D&D Abridged by Theatre of the Unaligned, but actually that one is animated based on what I think is a different campaign that is not recorded, because I found no evidence of it anywhere. But I mean, and that one is just shorts, but again, it's still intriguing enough. I mean, it definitely seems like a way where, you know, we could actually all, and we would have to obviously sacrifice the element of surprise from our characters if we were willing to do so, you know. But at least for ourselves, the audience would of course not know any of this, but you know, you wouldn't get the classic reactions from the fellow players around the table. Those, like, you know, viral clips of people being like, look how the players react when, you know, the X person does this or whatever, you know, or any Advantest clip where they're like bursting in laughter from their improv, or I don't know, you know, hey, look at this, look at this thing that, you know, Sam Riegel did, or, you know, or Laura Bailey said something, or reacted in this way, and blah blah blah. You know, you get the idea. So yeah, so that would end up being, again, would it be a good trade-off? Potentially. I personally don't mind ruining the element of surprise for these things for behind-the-scenes purposes, just not in front of them. Of course, the other issue is, you know, hey, it's yet another project on top of, like, all the other stuff sometime later. But yeah, I wonder, actually, you know, because, I mean, what does everyone else think? Do you think that maybe that would be, you know, a good way to avoid any future drama, and you know, finally give these characters not just the closure they need, but the adventure, because some of them barely got to explore, like, even part of their story, even, like, you know, journey through that, let alone, you know, wrap things up. Some of us were just getting started, really. Now, Quest of the Rising Sun was meant to be like meant to have 3 arcs. We got through the first one, but even then, I'm sure there would have been, you know, far more for us to do, considering that well, I thought that Vim would have, like, wrapped it up after the story, and then we've been like, oh hey, let's like plan a different campaign that could have been, like, you know, this continuation based on what happened in this series, or I don't know. That's what I thought might have happened at the beginning. And then from there, I don't know. It would have been dependent on, you know, who got the end of their story. You know, that's why a lot of campaigns are so long form, because they, you know, they want to take their time, and, you know, it will wrap people's stories up, but also, you know, eventually, if there is a BBEG and everything, go through that at the end. So yeah, I don't know. That's a question that I'll pose to all of you. Do you think that that might be a good idea, considering that the 2 people that left because of the drama, that are still enthusiastic about it, are enthusiastic once again? Do you think that they are right, or they're getting themselves into a corner again? I don't know. Let's see what everyone else thinks. Bottom line, you know, I'm very much thinking about D&D again, because Missions of Occulta, you know, like, you know, aired last week particularly, and I would love to talk about something that happened, you know, the things that happened in that episode. But to be honest, you know, just go ahead and watch those, and the moments that I plan to actually address, because I think they were vastly misinterpreted by the people involved, we will see how that gets handled in the future. I might because I mean, the way that it was received, like, oh wow, there's, like, such a dark side for this character or whatever, you know, like, the whole Brandon murderer thing was way too much. But yeah, again, go ahead and check out that video for yourselves, because at least there is something involved, and I'm really relieved about that, especially because I remember that Ghosty said that she kind of had been put off from you know, the hobby entirely, based on what happened with Breathing Moon. So I'm really relieved that she was willing to come back, and also that you know, she had a good time with that, because, you know, we've all been, you know, buzzing behind the scenes, and she's made an intro as well. So again, the dedication has returned. Like, again, it would definitely be a lot to say, oh, you know, I've sworn off this hobby that I've enjoyed for years because of a string of bad events, but they were pretty bad events from Ghosty's perspective. So again, I'm just happy that that ended up not being the case. But yeah, as much as I really enjoy Orchid's story, and And I'm also saddened that Professor Crackknuckles ended up getting his chance, because that campaign plan ended up being not suited for us, even though it was meant to be developed for us, but that's beside the point. Yeah, Nathaniel is always probably always going to be my favorite character that I've played in D&D, and yeah, obviously from my personal level, I would definitely want to see his story go through. I know exactly where he wants to end up in life as well, and I haven't mentioned that yet. Because we talked about how apparently Vin had some different ideas based on you know, like our karma levels or something, or what like we did as characters, based on like what ending we would actually unlock, which would have been a great way to actually have player agency that actually did come from, you know, our actions rather than you know, nothing roleplay related. And also, I think he mentioned as well that he's actually not as much of a dungeons person anymore, which I don't think that includes puzzles and cryptography, but it might. We didn't talk about this, but actually now focuses a lot more on like that creation of the story with the players, which I think probably means that we rubbed off on him, to be honest, because that was to some degree that for that session 0 was like, oh well, this is the union of the parties and something. Maybe that was the beginning point. So again, something you could argue is positive came out from that, or at least if not, you know, if not outright positive, definitely not negative. So, you know, something different. Which, you know, for somebody who's been DMing for 10 years, I'm sure that Vin appreciates to some extent. And yeah, if we'd like, I mean, it is to say, depending on how much we keep of Quest the Rising Sun, who knows if we might end up introducing some of those elements that he actually wanted, and possibly rejecting the ones that we would have found entirely annoying. So yeah, all these hypotheticals that I've got on my mind right now. Again, I really wanted to talk about Occulta, but you know, suddenly, you know, there comes that inaugural D&D experience again, and then that's it. Not to mention, also now I have access to the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual. I got this my birthday, so I've been reading through the Player's Handbook mainly for Occulta. But hey, who knows? There might be some ideas in there if we stick to that somewhat formatting. I don't know. Again, let me know what you think, basically. If you're BB or Emily, you know, obviously, feel free to say what you think in DMs or the server, because that would make sense, and then we could definitely discuss, you know, what you think of that concept to begin with, because we're not going to go forward with anything unless, you know, everyone is okay with it. Like, I mean, the pair of them wanted to see that continue as a campaign, but to be honest, to keep everyone involved to that level, maybe it should just, you know, make that shift, and that way, you know, we can actually keep the 5-way dynamic, rather than, again, one of us ending up accidentally siphoning focus and appearing to the outside world like the main character once again, unless it is appropriate, in which case we shall see. But for now, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. On that note, until next time, farewell.